But niggas can't change it, right? This man got a wife, he got kids, everything else.
Yeah, I understand that.
You going to the streets still?
Listen, he got the wife and kids from being the person he was in the street. Don't change me. I mean, glow a nigga up, and that's cool. You can help me, think a little better. But it's certain things I gotta react to. Everybody knows.
One of Atlanta's most renowned rappers was turned away at the entrance as he attempted to return to the place where it all began. Nor by a rival team, nor by the police, but by his own guys. The same streets that shaped him, gave him his identity, his reputation, and his credibility. Gucci Mane, a man who formerly commanded Atlanta's trap scene with an iron grip, told him, "Nah, you can't come back here," while staring him in the face. A guy has been barred from East Atlanta Zone 6 after surviving shootings, jail bids, and a beef that would have killed most people. The same area he drew on the map was his own neighborhood. Furthermore, Gucci Mane was embroiled in a circumstance that finally resulted in his exclusion from the culture that produced him, despite his public image as a loving husband and repentant rap entrepreneur. The reality of what actually transpired is more complex and dark than the blogs are revealing. And we are peeling back every single curtain today. How are you, family? Greetings from the channel once again. If you're new here, we don't simply give you the headlines. Instead, we give you the full story, the background, the street politics, and the genuine conversation that the mainstream media won't cover. We are delving deeply into one of the most contentious scenarios in Atlanta rap history today, so make sure you are subscribed. Now let's get started. Let me be really honest with you all before we ride out on this tale. On the internet, there has been a lot of hubbub. Gucci Mane is said to have fallen off. Some claim he's insane. People claim that the streets were aware of the impending day. However, we are going to distinguish between reality and fiction, the real and the phony. Because there is more to this situation than a 2-minute tweet. First, let's establish something. Zone 6, East Atlanta. Let me explain what that means in the context of Atlanta rap if you're not familiar with it. Zone 6 is more than simply a zip code. It's a legacy. Some of the most influential trap music that this generation has ever heard originated there. Furthermore, Gucci Mane wasn't limited to Zone 6. From there, he contributed to defining what it meant to be. The East Atlanta identity that Gucci Mane carried like armor for years encompassed the drill, the look, the hustle, and the code. Therefore, be aware of the significance of Gucci Mane's suspension from the same community. This goes beyond a rapper's lack of popularity. This man is being physically and mentally banished from the area that shaped his identity. In the streets, that is not something that is taken lightly. That's a decision. Hold on, before you all assume that this is just clout chasing and internet drama. The events that transpired between Gucci Mane and his community can be traced back to one of the most talked about court cases in modern rap history. This is where things become really hot since Pooh Shiesty is involved. Check it out, then. Let's return to the point at when the foundation began to crumble. For those who haven't been following, Pooh Shiesty is a rapper from Memphis who rose to fame in the early 2020s. Signed to the 1017 Records label of Gucci Mane. One of the roster's most promising young performers was Pooh Shiesty.
After the altercation about getting up out the contract, Pooh made Gucci sign the contract.
The man exuded vitality. He had bars. He had the street credibility to support it all. And there he was, being put on by Gucci Mane. At first glance, it appeared to be a typical mentor-protege scenario. An original investor in the generation that will emerge from the trap. But after that, everything was different. In 2021, a carjacking and robbery case from Florida led to federal indictments against Pooh Shiesty and several members of his gang, the Choa Gang. Now, federal charges are entirely different from state charges. A night in the county is not what we are discussing. We are discussing charges that include co-defendant agreements, mandatory minimum terms, and prosecutors who will put pressure on everyone in the room until someone speaks. At this point, Gucci Mane's name begins to appear in discussions unrelated to music at all. Gucci Mane assisted federal authorities in ways that directly affected Pooh Shiesty's case and the cases of those associated with his gang, according to several people who spoke about this matter. Now, such cooperation can take many different forms in terms of the law. It might be evidence. It might involve giving information in return for something. Documented statements may be the source. However, there is only one phrase for it in the vernacular of the society on which Gucci Mane founded his entire career: snitching. The significance of that term in this situation is huge, so take a moment to consider it. Being untouchable and a product of the actual Atlanta streets, where the code meant everything, is how this man developed his reputation. The notion that Gucci Mane adhered to a set of rules was the foundation of his entire character. Regulations that residents of Zone 6 and similar localities are deeply familiar with. And the claim that he violated the most basic of those regulations with regard to Pushisti and his entire group is supported by recorded court proceedings and individuals with direct knowledge of the matter. For those of you who may not fully comprehend the street dynamics at work here, allow me to explain. Cooperation with federal prosecutors is not merely discouraged in places where law enforcement has traditionally been an adversarial rather than a protecting force. It is perceived as a betrayal of the community. The expectation of loyalty is even higher when you are someone of Gucci Mane's stature, have made money off of that community's culture, have established a career narrating tales about that way of life. People have gone to bat for you, and the streets have shown you love for decades. As a result, when word got out that Gucci Mane had placed himself on the opposing side of Pooh Shai and the Choa gang, members of his own label from the ecosystem he contributed to were involved. The streets reacted as best they could. They interrupted him. But family, this is where things become very fascinating. Due to the fact that the Zone 6 prohibition was not implemented quietly. It took place in public. It was with the receipts. Gucci Mane was not welcome when he was seen attempting to return to the stomping grounds through the East Atlanta region, whether it was for an event or personal reasons. Furthermore, such kind of rejection does not remain silent in the era of social media. Videos became viral. People conversed. Word quickly spread that the guy who formerly ruled those streets as a king could no longer even pass through them without restriction. Consider the symbolic meaning of that image. Gucci Mane owns a suburban home. He has had popularity in mainstream crossover. He has a spouse. He's got a child. He has openly completed the entire redemption arc. The conversations about legacy, the business endeavors, and the weight loss. He should be winning by all objective standards. But when your own people refuse to allow you to return home, none of it counts. And it's precisely this disparity between the polished public image and the reality on the ground in Zone 6 that has drawn so much attention to this tale. The worst part, though, is how this prohibition is implemented because there isn't a formal gathering where people cast ballots to remove you from office. Communication about exile differs. When you arrive and no one is pleased to see you, it's in the energy. People who used to ride for you are silent. It stems from the fact that no one can now vouch for your existence or for a member of the culture who was raised understanding the significance of those signals. Being prohibited from Zone 6 makes the loudest possible statement. You people, the streets have been speaking. Furthermore, they claim that Gucci Mane is no longer safe in the location where he was previously untouchable. This is where we need to talk about something crucial because I know that some of you who are watching may be from outside the culture and may be asking why this is so essential. He's wealthy. He is well known. He doesn't even have to return to the neighborhood, does he? That's the misconception that has to be dispelled. The link to one's hometown is more than just sentimental for artists from places like Zone 6. It is fundamental to who you are and how legitimate you are in this society. Authenticity has always been the foundation of hip-hop music. That neighborhood connection is essential if you are a trap rapper, especially if your entire brand is based on the truth of your upbringing and experiences. It's not background scenery. It's the narrative. Gucci Mane's music was not limited to the trap. The trap was him. And the strength and durability of his music came from that genuineness and authenticity. Gucci Mane's tracks were not the only reason why people listened to him. Because they trusted him, they paid attention. Because he seemed to be living the difficulties he was writing about. Consequently, his past is revoked by the same community who verified that story. They are not merely denying him access to a physical location. They are challenging the story as a whole. Furthermore, your story is crucial in hip-hop. Let's now discuss something that gives all of this still another level of complexity. Over the past few years, those who have been keeping an eye on Gucci Mane have observed that something appears strange. There has been a lot of conjecture that Gucci Mane is now on some kind of psychiatric medication because of his actions in interviews, his social media presence, and several decisions that have drawn criticism. I want to be clear now. I'm not a physician, and I'm not here to make diagnoses. However, the community has been having an open discussion about this, and it directly relates to the larger picture of Gucci Mane's current and past selves. On the one hand, there are those who claim, look, the medication explains the changes in his behavior. It explains why he seems disconnected from the streets, why his judgment seems different, why the man who once moved with precision and purpose now seems to be operating on a completely different frequency. But here is the other side of that coin, and this is the real talk that the streets have been serving up loud and clear. Gucci Mane in his prime was not a passive figure. This was a man who robbed people. This was a man who was involved in serious street activity that affected real people in his community. And the code, the same code that is now being used to exile him. The streets lived by that code when Gucci Mane was on the other side of it, too. People who got robbed by Gucci Mane or who were affected by his activity back in those days, they did not call the feds. They did not cooperate with law enforcement. They handled things the way the streets handled things, or they took their losses and kept moving. Real talk. There's a deep irony in that, and people aren't afraid to point it out. Gucci Mane could do what he did back then, move through those communities, and the code protected him. Those same people, or people similar to them, extended the courtesy of silence when Gucci Mane was causing harm, and now that the tables have turned and Gucci Mane is being asked to uphold the same code of silence when federal pressure came down on him, he allegedly made a different decision. Let that sink in for a minute. They remember every violation. They remember who got hurt and who did not say a word. And they also remember who started talking when the feds came knocking and who did not. The medication conversation matters here because it raises a genuine question about accountability. If Gucci Mane's mental state has been significantly altered, if he genuinely is not operating with full capacity right now, does that change how his decisions should be evaluated? Is it fair to hold someone fully accountable for choices made under medical circumstances that may have compromised their judgment? Those are valid questions. But in the court of the streets, those questions do not carry much weight because the damage caused by cooperation. Whether it came from a place of fear, of mental compromise, of pure self-interest, or some combination of all three, the damage is real and it is already done. Push Shiesty and his crew are dealing with the consequences of a legal situation that Gucci Mane's alleged cooperation impacted. No explanation changes that outcome. Now, let's zoom out for a second because this situation with Gucci Mane is not happening in a vacuum. We are in an era where the relationship between rap artists and federal law enforcement has become one of the defining tensions in the culture. From the RICO cases that have swept through Atlanta rap in recent years, cases that have pulled in multiple artists and their entire circles to the ongoing debates about cooperation agreements, the pressure that the federal government puts on people connected to this music scene is unlike anything we have seen before. And when artists of Gucci Mane's stature get caught in that machinery, the decisions they make have ripple effects that go far beyond their own personal circumstances. Because these are people that younger artists look up to. These are people that communities take cues from. When an OG folds under federal pressure, it sends a message throughout the whole ecosystem. When someone who built their career on a code abandons that code when things get serious, it recalibrates everyone's understanding of where the lines actually are. There is also the business dimension to consider. Gucci Mane's 2017 records were built on discovering and elevating street talent. Pooh Shy was supposed to be one of his biggest success stories. A Memphis artist with real buzz who Gucci Mane had invested in and put on a major platform. The idea that the relationship between artist and label boss ended up playing out inside a federal case with allegations that the boss cooperated in ways that affected the artist. That is a fundamental breakdown of the trust that every artist and label relationship is supposed to be built on. For artists who might be considering signing with 1017 or working with Gucci Mane in any capacity going forward, this situation forces a very uncomfortable question about what that relationship is actually worth when the pressure comes. At the end of the day, fam, Gucci Mane situation is not just about one man being banned from one neighborhood in Atlanta. It is about something much bigger than that. It is about the price of authenticity in a culture that demands it. It is about the tension between survival and community loyalty when the stakes get existential. It is about what happens when the codes that an entire musical genre is built on come into direct collision with the machinery of federal law enforcement, and somebody has to make a choice. Gucci Mane built his entire legacy on being undeniable. From Trap House dropping in 2005 and changing what Atlanta rap sounded like to surviving situations that would have ended most people to going to prison multiple times and coming back sharper every single time. This man had a narrative of resilience that felt almost mythological. And the thing about myths, when they break loud. Because it is not just that Gucci Mane is allegedly banned from Zone 6. It is that the ban represents the community's official verdict on who he is now versus who he claimed to be. It is the streets saying, "We love the version of you that lives by the code. This version is not recognized by us." Now, some viewers will think, well, perhaps Gucci Mane made the right decision for himself. Given everything at risk, perhaps cooperation was the right decision. Perhaps the calculation changed at this stage of his life, when he had a wife, a child, and real business interests. When you truly have something to lose, perhaps the old codes don't apply. And that reasoning makes sense to me. I'm not here to advise anyone on how to handle a federal matter. When major repercussions are involved, people make difficult judgments. Furthermore, I am not putting myself in other people's shoes. Here's what I will say though. The people in your community have every right to hold you to that identity since you have profited from it for decades if you plan to base your career on it, if your art, brand, and cultural authority are all based on a particular set of values. You made money off of it. You utilized it to become wealthy, well-known, and influential. However, one of Atlanta's most famous people is currently standing outside the neighborhood that caused him to peek in, and the neighborhood is not turning around. Please share your opinions in the comments section below. Does the Zone 6 ban alter your perception of Gucci Mane's legacy? For more tales like this one, watch the video that is currently playing.